The worst part was not the cheating. The worst part was that I loved him when he had nothing settled, nothing certain, nothing shiny to offer anybody. I loved him before the uniform, before the confidence, before the new life that made him feel bigger than the town we came from. I loved him when he was just a boy with nervous hands, cheap sneakers, and 1,000 plans that changed every other week. And somehow, by the end of it, I was the one treated like I had been in the way. If you saw his wedding photos now, you would think he was some sweet, disciplined man who found love while serving his country. You would think he was loyal, honest, respectable. You would think she was lucky. That was the part that used to make me sick, because I knew what those pictures did not show. They did not show me sitting on my bed at 2 in the morning, staring at my phone, wondering why the man I had waited for suddenly acted like speaking to me was a chore. They did not show the days I defended him to people who could already see what I was too loyal to admit. They did not show how he slowly peeled me out of his life while still keeping one hand on me, just in case whatever new thing he was chasing did not work out. And they definitely did not show the rage I swallowed the day I found out he had brought the girl he cheated with into my hometown and married her like I was just some old jacket he had tossed in the closet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then, before all of that, there was just me and Ryan. Ryan and I had been together almost 3 years. We met the way a lot of people do in small towns, through mutual friends, awkward group hangouts, and the kind of repeated run-ins that start to feel like fate when you are young enough to still believe in that sort of thing. He was funny in a dry, careless way, not loud, not performative, the kind of funny that sneaks up on you. He would wait until everyone stopped talking and then say one stupid, perfectly timed thing that would catch me so off guard I would laugh harder than I meant to. He liked making me laugh. I think, in the beginning, he liked that I looked at him like he was going to become something bigger than where we lived. And maybe that was my first mistake. I believed in him hard. Not in the cute, teenage way where you write somebody's name in a notebook and daydream about matching last names. I mean, I really believed in him. When he talked about feeling stuck, I listened. When he worried about money for school, I sat with him and helped him look at options. When he started talking seriously about joining the Army Reserve so college would be paid for, I was the one telling him he could do it. He looked terrified the first time he brought it up. We were sitting in his truck outside my apartment. It was summer, hot enough that the air still felt sticky after dark. He had both hands on the steering wheel even though the engine was off. "I think I'm going to do it," he said. "Do what?" He looked straight ahead. "The reserve thing." I turned toward him. "Really?" He nodded once. "Yeah, I don't know. I need something. I can't stay here doing random jobs forever." "You're right," I said. He gave me a quick look, almost surprised I had not argued with him. "You don't think it's stupid?" "No," I said. "I think you want a future." He smiled then, small, relieved. "You always make things sound less scary." I remember that moment too clearly. The yellow parking lot light, his profile half in shadow, the way I felt proud of him already, like he had not even left yet and I was already cheering him on. I had no idea one day I would hate that memory, not because it was bad, but because it was real. The real memories were the ones that hurt the most. It would have been easier if he had always been selfish. Easier if he had always been cruel. But he wasn't. That's what kept me hanging on long after I should have let go. In those months before he left, our relationship felt stronger than ever. We talked like we were planning a life, not just dating. He told me he wanted to come back more disciplined, more focused, more like the kind of man who could actually build something. I joked that the military was going to turn him into one of those people who folded socks for fun. He laughed and said if I was lucky, maybe he would even start opening doors for me like a gentleman. It's funny what sticks with you. That stupid little joke would come back later in the ugliest way. At the time, though, I was all in. I helped him get ready. I went with him to buy things on his packing list. I sat with him while he complained about paperwork. I listened to his mother act like she was the only person in the world allowed to be emotional about him leaving. His mom had always been polite to me, but not warm. The kind of woman who would smile and still make you feel like you were standing in the wrong spot in her kitchen. His sister was worse. She acted like no girl would ever be good enough for him, which was funny because he was still sleeping till noon half the time and living off gas station snacks. Still, I dealt with them because I loved him. And because I thought loving somebody meant swallowing little discomforts for the bigger picture. When he finally left for boot camp, I cried in my car after saying goodbye. Not dramatic movie crying, not a pretty single tear. I mean ugly crying, shoulders shaking, nose running. The kind of crying where you feel stupid and abandoned even though you were the one smiling and saying, "I'm proud of you, go do your thing." He had hugged me hard before he got on the bus. "I'm doing this for us too," he whispered. That sentence stayed in my chest for months. For us too. I repeated it every time I missed him. Every time communication was limited. Every time I had to be patient and understanding and mature. Every time friends made jokes about military guys cheating and I rolled my eyes, because not Ryan, not us, not after everything. I wrote him letters, actual letters, pages and pages. I told him about normal things, work drama, my neighbor's loud dog, my mom asking too many questions, the coffee place we liked changing their menu. I wanted him to feel connected to home. I wanted him to know he still had a life waiting for him here. I sprayed one envelope with perfume once and then felt embarrassed, like I was in a corny romance movie, but I sent it anyway. He wrote back too, at first. His letters were shorter than mine, but sweet. He said training was hard, said he missed real food, missed sleeping in, missed my face, missed my voice. He said seeing my handwriting made him feel normal again. He told me to come to his graduation if I could because he wanted me there. Of course I went. There was never a question. The day of his graduation, I woke up before my alarm. I took too long getting ready because I wanted to look nice without looking like I had tried too hard. I remember standing in front of the mirror and changing shirts twice because I was suddenly nervous. Not first date nervous, more like reunion nervous. Like seeing him again would prove that all the waiting meant something. His family was there too, of course. His mom, his sister, a few other relatives. Even before I saw him, the energy felt weird, not openly hostile, just off. Like I was welcome, but only on the surface. Like everyone had agreed not to say something in front of me. I told myself I was overthinking it. When Ryan finally came out, everything else disappeared for a second. I saw him in uniform, and my eyes filled instantly. He looked different, straighter, sharper, more self-assured. He looked like the version of himself he had always wanted to become. When he spotted me, he smiled, and for one beautiful second I thought, there he is, there's my person. He hugged his mom first, then his sister, then me. That should have bothered me. At the time, it didn't. I told myself family came first on days like this. I told myself not to be petty. But his hug with me was quick, not cold, not rude, just quick. Like he already had 10 other things on his mind. "You came," he said. I laughed through tears. Obviously. He smiled, but his attention was already moving, family talking, people pulling him in different directions, photos, congratulations, noise. It was still a good day. I forced it to stay a good day in my mind. He stood next to me in pictures. He kissed my cheek once. He thanked me for coming. But even then, if I am honest, there was a thin, invisible distance there that had never existed before. Not enough to panic, just enough to remember later. His mom was especially odd that day, watching me too closely, being polite in that stiff, formal way that lets you know you are tolerated, not embraced. His sister barely spoke to me unless she had to. At one point, I walked up while they were talking and the conversation stopped so fast it almost made me laugh. I should have trusted that feeling. But love makes fools out of smart women every day. I left that graduation telling myself I was just emotional, that everybody was tired, that military family stuff was probably intense, that long distance was stressful, that nothing was wrong. I held on to that version of reality because the alternative was too painful. After graduation, he left again for training school out of state. That was when everything changed. The shift was so fast that if I describe it now, it sounds obvious, but when you are inside it, you don't see a clean break. You see little excuses, little gaps, small changes you explain away one by one until you wake up one day and realize the relationship you are defending barely exists. At first, he was just busy. That was the word, busy. Busy with classes, busy with drills, busy adjusting, busy tired, busy stressed, busy around new people, busy trying to stay focused. Every time I felt hurt, busy showed up like a bandage over a bullet hole. Our calls got shorter, then less frequent, then weird. He used to ask me about my day. Suddenly, every conversation felt like I was interrupting something. He still answered, still texted, still said love you often enough to keep me from panicking. But the warmth was thinning out, like somebody had turned down the heat 1 degree at a time and expected me not to notice the room getting cold. Sometimes I would call and he sounded distracted. Not tired, distracted. Like he was half listening, half somewhere else. "What are you doing?" I asked him once. "Just hanging with people." "What people?" "People from here. Guys." A pause. "Yeah, guys. Everybody." That little pause sat in my stomach like a stone. I laughed it off. Everybody sounds like a lot. He got annoyed immediately. "Why are you doing that?" "Doing what?" "Making it weird." I went quiet. "I was just asking." He sighed. And just like that, I was the problem. Me. Not the pause, not the vague answer, not the sudden edge in his voice. Me, for noticing. That became a pattern. He would give me just enough strangeness to trigger my gut, then act like I was insecure for reacting to it. If he took forever to answer, I was needy. If he sounded cold, I was overthinking. If I asked direct questions, I was starting fights. It is amazing how quickly a woman can start doubting her own instincts when the person she loves keeps handing her confusion with a straight face. Still, I stayed. Because I remembered the truck conversation. Because I remembered his letters. Because I remembered that promise, "I'm doing this for us too." Because once you have invested years into someone, your heart becomes a lawyer. It argues for them. It explains them. It builds cases around scraps of evidence that maybe this is just a hard season. My friends started noticing before I was ready to admit anything. One of them, Kayla, was the first to really push me. We were getting coffee one Saturday morning, and I was checking my phone every few minutes because Ryan had said he might call. Kayla watched me for a while, before saying, "Do you even enjoy this anymore?" I looked up. "Enjoy what?" "This." She pointed lightly at my phone. "Being in a relationship with somebody who acts like he's doing you a favor every time he remembers you exist." I felt heat rise in my face. "It's not like that." She gave me a look over her cup. "Okay. He's in training. It's hard." "I'm sure it is." "You sound sarcastic." "I sound like your friend." She put her cup down. "Listen, I know you love him. I know you've been holding it down while he's gone. But every time I see you lately, you look anxious. Not loved, not secure, anxious." I hated how quickly my eyes burned. I'm just stressed. Because of him. I stared at the table. Kayla reached across and squeezed my hand. I'm not saying he's definitely doing something. I'm saying the version of you that used to laugh all the time, she's been gone for a minute. That wrecked me more than I let her see, because I knew she was right. I had become one of those girls I used to swear I would never become, waiting by the phone, reading tone into texts, replaying conversations, measuring my worth by how quickly some man responded. I hated that version of myself, but I kept telling myself it was temporary, that once he finished training and came home, everything would settle again. Everything would go back. That's another lie women tell themselves. That people return to old versions of themselves just because we miss them. They don't. Sometimes they leave as one person and come back as another. And sometimes the new version only remembers you when it's convenient. A few weeks later, Ryan called late at night. I had been half asleep, and when I saw his name, my whole body woke up. Hey, I said, sitting up. You okay? Yeah, he said. His voice was low, almost too casual. Just wanted to hear your voice. My heart softened instantly. I miss you. Miss you too. For a few minutes, it almost felt normal again. We talked about random things. He laughed. He sounded easy, charming, familiar. I could feel myself relaxing for the first time in weeks. Then, right in the middle of me talking, I heard a female laugh in the background. Not from a TV, not from far away. Close. Real. Close enough that she had to be in the room, or right next to him. I went silent. Hello? He said. Who was that? What? That laugh. He paused. Nobody. I felt my chest tighten. That was not nobody. It's people around. Calm down. At this hour? He let out a breath like I was exhausting. You're doing too much. There it was again. That phrase. You're doing too much. I gripped the phone harder. I asked a question, and I answered it. No, you didn't. He went quiet for a second, and then his voice changed. Flat, defensive. I'm not doing this tonight. Doing what? Asking why there's some girl laughing next to you while you tell me you miss me. Bye, Ava. And then he hung up. I stared at my screen in the dark, pulse hammering in my throat. He had never hung up on me like that before. Never. I called back once, straight to voicemail. Again, voicemail. Again, voicemail. Then nothing. I did not sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling until the room turned gray with morning, feeling something awful start to take shape inside me. Not proof, not certainty. Just the first hard edge of a truth I was not ready to touch. The next day he texted like nothing had happened. Sorry, fell asleep. Long day. That was it. No explanation, no apology for hanging up, no mention of the girl. Just a lazy lie dropped at my feet like I was supposed to be grateful he sent anything at all. I read that text so many times my vision blurred. And even then, a part of me still wanted to believe him. That was how far gone I was. I typed out 3 different responses and deleted all of them. Finally, I just sent, okay, hope training goes well today. Looking back, I want to shake that version of me. I want to grab her by the face and say, he is teaching you how little respect he has for you. Please pay attention. But at the time, I was still trying to be the cool, understanding girlfriend. The loyal one. The steady one. The one who did not make things harder. I did not know yet that while I was protecting the relationship, he was already loosening his grip on it with both hands. I did not know yet that the strange energy from his mother and sister would make sense later. I did not know yet that there was another woman stepping into the empty space where I thought I still lived. I only knew that for the first time in almost 3 years, I was afraid to ask too many questions because deep down, I was terrified of the answers. And a week later, that fear got worse. Because someone sent me a photo from out of state, and in that photo, Ryan was not alone. The photo hit my phone at 4:13 inches the afternoon. I remember the time, because I stared at it so long the numbers burned into my head. I was at work, half listening to my manager explain something about a schedule change, when my phone buzzed in my lap. I glanced down, expecting some useless group message or a coupon email, or maybe, if I was lucky, Ryan finally deciding to act like a boyfriend again. Instead, it was a text from a girl I knew from back home. Not a close friend, more like someone I had gone to school with, somebody who still floated through mutual circles enough to hear things. The kind of person who didn't usually message me unless there was a reason. The text said, "Hey, I don't know if this is my business, but isn't this your boyfriend?" Below it was a photo. My stomach dropped so hard it felt physical, like I had missed a step on a staircase. I opened it. There he was. Ryan. No denying it. No weird angle. No blurry maybe. Him, plain as day. Standing outside some ugly brick building in his training town, wearing a t-shirt and that stupid confident smile he used whenever he thought he looked good in a picture. And next to him was a girl. Not next to in some harmless group photo way. She was tucked into him. One arm around his waist, his hand low on her back. Her body leaned into his like that position was familiar, comfortable, claimed. The kind of body language you don't accidentally fall into. For a second, all the sound around me disappeared. I could still see my manager talking, still see people walking past my desk, but everything felt far away, like my ears had gone underwater. I zoomed in, then out, then back in again like somehow, if I stared hard enough, I would find an explanation hidden in the pixels. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe she was just one of those touchy girls. Maybe. No. I knew what I was looking at. The worst part was not even the photo itself. It was the instant, sickening relief that came with it. Because suddenly, I was not crazy. I was not insecure. I was not doing too much. My gut had been screaming for weeks, and there it was. Proof that something had changed, that somebody else was in the room, that every cold text and short phone call and irritated sigh had not been in my head. Pain and relief are a cruel combination. My fingers went numb. I typed back, "Where did you get this?" Her reply came fast. "A girl from my cousin's page posted it. I saw him and recognized him from your pictures. I almost didn't send it because I didn't want drama, but if it were me, I'd want to know." I swallowed hard. "Thank you." That was all I could manage. My manager finally stopped talking and asked if I was okay. I looked up too fast. "Yeah, just a headache." He nodded and moved on. I spent the rest of my shift pretending I was not falling apart. That is one of the most humiliating parts of getting cheated on. The world keeps going. People still ask stupid questions. Emails still come in. Somebody still wants to know if you can cover Saturday. And meanwhile, your chest feels like it has been split open in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday. I did not call Ryan right away. That surprised even me. Old me would have called instantly, cried instantly, demanded answers instantly. But something about seeing the proof changed me for a second. It made me cold, not healed, not strong. Just cold enough to realize that if I called him while I was shaking, he would do what he had been doing for weeks: deny, twist, minimize, make me sound emotional, buy himself time. So I waited. I went to my car after work, shut the door, and just sat there gripping the steering wheel. The photo was open on my screen again. I stared at his face until anger finally pushed through the shock. He looked happy. That was what broke something in me. Not guilty, not confused, happy. Like he had already stepped into another life and left me behind without even bothering to officially close the door. I called him at 6 too. He answered on the third ring. "Hey," he said, like he was doing me a favor. "What's up?" I almost laughed. "What's up?" That was how he answered. Not, "Hey babe," not, "I'm sorry I've been weird," not anything that belonged in a relationship of almost 3 years. I said, very calmly, "I got sent a picture of you." Silence. Then, too fast. "What picture?" That told me everything. He knew. If he had truly been innocent, he would have said, "What are you talking about?" Or, "Okay," or, even, "Sent from who?" But no, he went straight to what picture, because there was more than one thing he could have been caught doing. I looked out my windshield at nothing. You and some girl outside a building, her arm around you, your hand on her back. Another silence. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. I will never forget that sound. Not because it was funny, but because it was the moment I realized how much contempt he had for my feelings. "You're serious?" he said. I gripped the phone tighter. "Very. It's not like that." "Of course. The oldest line in the cheating handbook." "Then what is it like?" "She's just somebody from here." "Somebody from here wraps herself around you for photos?" "You're making this bigger than it is." There it was again, the same trick. Not answering, just accusing me of reacting wrong. I closed my eyes. "Ryan, do not do that. I am literally looking at the picture. You know people take pictures out of context." "Out of context," I repeated. "What context makes that normal when you have a girlfriend?" He sighed like I had become exhausting. "Nothing happened." "Are you talking to her?" "She's around. Everybody's around. It's training. You're around people all the time." That is not what I asked. I could feel my voice sharpening now, the calm slipping. "Are you talking to her like that? Flirting? Hanging out alone? Anything?" He paused, just long enough to answer without answering. "You need to relax." Something inside me snapped. "No, you need to tell the truth for once." "I am telling the truth." "You are lying." "I'm not." "You are." His voice hardened. "You don't trust me." I almost choked on the nerve of it. "You gave me a reason not to." "No, you decided to take a random photo and run with it because you want something to be wrong." That line was so ridiculous it left me speechless for half a second. I wanted something to be wrong. As if I had spent 3 years building a relationship just so I could invent reasons to destroy it from my apartment while he played fake soldier in another state. I laughed once. Sharp and ugly. "Are you hearing yourself right now? You always do this." My whole body went still. Always? Always? I had spent months swallowing questions, giving him space, making excuses, trying not to pressure him, trying not to be that girl, and now suddenly I always did this? That was when I understood the game more clearly. He needed me to become the problem so he could feel less guilty about what he was doing. Men like that don't just cheat. They rewrite the emotional history while they're doing it. They act like your pain came out of nowhere, like your suspicion is the attack, like your heartbreak is inconvenience. I said quietly, "You know what's crazy? I have been trying so hard to be understanding. I have defended you to people. I have made excuses for you. I have ignored things that felt wrong because I wanted to believe in you, and somehow you still found a way to act like I'm the problem." He was quiet, not because he was sorry, because he was thinking. Thinking the way liars think when they're deciding which version gets them the most time. Finally he said, "I just think long distance is messing with your head." That was the sentence that made something in me go cold. Because that sentence was not confusion. It was strategy. He was not stumbling. He was choosing this. I looked at the photo again. Her face. his hand, his smile. "Okay," I said. He hesitated. "Okay, what?" "Okay, I heard you." And then I hung up. For the next hour, he texted me like a man trying to manage a situation, not repair a heart. "You're tripping. Nothing happened. I don't have time for drama right now. This is why I didn't even want to say anything, because I knew you'd act like this." That last one made me laugh out loud in my car. This is why I didn't even want to say anything. As if his secret emotional life was my fault because I would have objected to being humiliated. I didn't respond. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not after his final lazy attempt. Call me when you calm down. When I calmed down, the arrogance of that nearly healed me on the spot. Because suddenly, for the first time in weeks, I could see him clearly. Not as the boy in the truck talking about his future. Not as the sweet boyfriend I had written letters to. Not even as the guy struggling through a hard transition. I saw him as he was becoming. A coward. A smooth liar. The kind of man who wanted freedom without consequences. The kind who wanted a loyal girl back home, and a new girl near him, and enough control over both stories to keep himself comfortable. The realization did not make me strong overnight. It just made me sick in a new way. I still loved him. That's the ugly truth nobody likes to admit. You can be disgusted by someone and still miss them. You can know they are lying, and still crave the version of them you lost. You can see the disrespect clearly, and still wake up hoping they will call and explain everything in a way that gives you your old life back. I hated that. The next couple of weeks were a blur of half-truths, silence, and little humiliations. He did not fully break up with me. That is important. Men like Ryan rarely cut one woman off before securing the other. They like overlap. They like options. They like to keep emotional doors cracked open. So he stayed in contact just enough to keep me unstable. Some days, he would ignore me for hours. Then late at night he would call acting soft, as if nothing had happened. He would say things like, "I miss you," or "I've just been stressed," or "I feel like you don't understand what I'm dealing with out here." And every time, I could hear how carefully he was avoiding the real issue. Not once did he say, "I'm sorry for what I did." Not once did he give me clean truth. Instead, he kept me in that miserable middle place where I could not heal because he would not either commit or completely leave. That middle place is torture. People think betrayal is one big moment. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is death by inches, 1,000 little cuts, 1,000 moments of being almost chosen, almost respected, almost told the truth. He started sounding different on the phone too. Looser, cockier. Like the distance had turned him into somebody who liked being chased. One night I asked him directly, "Are you seeing her?" He laughed under his breath. "Why are you obsessed with this girl?" Obsessed. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. "You mean the girl in your photo? You need to let stuff go." "Let stuff go," I repeated. "You are still my boyfriend." He paused. Then came the sentence I had been dreading without knowing it. "I never said that." My whole body went cold. I sat up in bed so fast I nearly tangled myself in the sheets. "What?" "I mean," he exhaled like this was all a misunderstanding. "I just think you keep assuming stuff." I stared into the dark, stunned by the sheer dishonesty of it. Assuming stuff. We had been together almost 3 years. I had gone to his graduation. I had waited through boot camp. I was still speaking to him like a girlfriend because that is exactly what he had allowed me to keep believing. And now he was acting like I had invented the relationship in my head. That is a special kind of cruelty. Not just cheating, erasing. Trying to make the person you hurt feel foolish for ever believing what you clearly encouraged. I felt tears rising, hot and humiliating. "Are you serious right now?" I'm just saying maybe we both need space. We both. That made me laugh through my tears. There it was, the cleanup language, the soft, vague wording people use when one person has already checked out and wants to avoid sounding like the villain. Space. Not truth. Not accountability. Not I met someone else. Just space. I should have hung up. I should have cursed him out. I should have blocked him and saved myself months of emotional rot. Instead, I asked the question women ask when they already know the answer. Is there somebody else? A pause. Then, I'm around a lot of people. I covered my eyes with one hand and started crying silently, not because of what he said, because of what he refused to say. That was his talent. He never handed me one clean wound. He made me bleed slowly around the edges of every sentence. I cannot believe you, I whispered. You're making this harder than it needs to be. That sentence dried my tears faster than anything else. Harder than it needs to be. Like my pain was paperwork. Like I was creating inconvenience around a decision he had already made for himself. I hung up again. After that, something in me shifted. Not enough to let go, not yet, but enough to stop begging for clarity from somebody committed to confusion. I stopped writing long texts. Stopped checking in first. Stopped handing him emotional access whenever he felt like reaching for it. And that was when he started popping back up more. Of course, that is how it works. When I was anxious, he was distant. When I pulled back, suddenly he remembered how to call. One Sunday afternoon, he FaceTimed me out of nowhere. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. A minute later, he texted, "Why didn't you answer?" I laughed at the audacity. I wrote back, "Busy." One word. That was all. He sent, "Oh." I could feel his confusion through the screen. For weeks I had been available, open, easy to leave hanging. Now suddenly I wasn't, and it bothered him. Not because he loved me, because he noticed the control slipping. Still, don't mistake this part for empowerment. I was not over him. I was not thriving. I was not in some glamorous revenge arc yet. I was barely sleeping, barely eating right. I would have little bursts of anger that made me feel powerful for 10 minutes, then collapse into sadness again. I started replaying everything. The graduation, his mother's weird energy, his sister stopping conversations when I walked up, the quick hug, the fake reassurance, the delayed replies, the laugh in the background, the photo. I kept asking myself the same question. How long had they known? Because once you realize one person is lying, you start seeing the possibility of a whole network of silence. Maybe his family had known he was changing. Maybe they had heard about the girl. Maybe that weird energy at graduation had not been in my head at all. Maybe I had already been standing at the edge of a story everyone else understood before I did. That possibility made me feel physically ill. I talked to Kayla again a few days later. We sat in her kitchen while she made boxed macaroni like it was gourmet food, and I finally told her everything. The photo, the calls, the gaslighting, the "I never said that" line. She stopped stirring and turned toward me slowly. "He said that?" I nodded, staring down at my drink. She looked furious on my behalf. "That is evil." "I know." "No, I mean it. That is not just cheating. That is him trying to make you question reality." I swallowed hard. Maybe I should have seen it sooner. Kayla set the spoon down with a sharp little clank. "No, stop doing that." I looked up. "You loved him," she said. "That is not stupidity. That is trust. He used it. That's on him." My throat tightened. "I just feel dumb." "You're not dumb." She leaned one hip against the counter. "You're hurt. Different thing." I laughed weakly. "Feels the same." "Maybe right now." She came over and sat across from me. "But listen to me. One day you're going to look back at this and realize the most embarrassing thing here is not that you loved him, it's that he fumbled a woman who held him down before he had anything. That should have made me feel better. Instead, it made me cry, because deep down, I knew it was true. I had been good to him, patient, loyal, proud of him, supportive in ways people do not even notice until they lose them. And he traded all of that for ego, novelty, and whatever cheap thrill came with reinventing himself around new people in a new place. A few days after that, I got another clue. Not from him, from social media. He had posted almost nothing for a while, which on its own was weird, because once training started, he had become more image conscious, more into photos, more into the look of the life he was building. So when I saw his name tagged in something, my heart started pounding before I even opened it. It was a photo dump from someone else's page. A bunch of training school pictures, group shots, weekend hangouts, mess hall nonsense, the kind of post people make when they want the world to know they are having the time of their lives. I flipped through them too fast at first, then slower, and there she was again. Not in every photo, just enough, in the background of one, sitting beside him in another, standing close in a mirror pic, his arm brushing hers in a way that looked practiced. Small things, deniable, if you wanted to be denied. But I was done insulting my own intelligence. What really made my stomach turn was his face. He looked lighter there than he had sounded with me in months. That was when I accepted something I had been fighting hard not to say out loud. He was not confused. He was not overwhelmed. He was not too stressed to love me correctly. He was giving somebody else the version of him I had been begging to see. That realization is brutal. Not just that someone else exists, but that they are getting the effort you kept being told was impossible. I took screenshots. I did not know what for yet. Maybe to remind myself later when he tried to rewrite things again. Maybe because pain always wants evidence. That night, he texted me after midnight. "You awake?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I answered. "Why? She busy?" He took 7 minutes to respond. 7. That told me enough. Finally. "You need to grow up." I smiled at my screen in disbelief. Grow up. That was rich coming from a man juggling women while trying to keep his image clean. I typed back. "No, you need to stop lying." He didn't answer. The next morning, I woke up to a text from him that changed the temperature of everything. It only said, "I think I'm coming home for a bit soon." That was it. No explanation. No mention of us. No mention of her. Just that. And somehow, against all logic, my heart jumped anyway. That is the part I am not proud of. Even after the photos, even after the lies, even after being made to feel crazy, a part of me still reacted to the idea of him coming home like maybe this was it. Maybe now he would finally sit down with me face to face. Maybe distance had made everything worse. Maybe seeing me in person would force honesty out of him. Hope is embarrassing when it survives, where it should have died, but it did. I texted back carefully. "When?" He did not answer for hours. Then finally, "Not sure yet. Soon." And that was the beginning of the next phase. The phase where he came back home just long enough to keep me emotionally hooked. The phase where I learned he was not only lying to me, he was collecting women like backup plans. And by the time I understood how deep it went, he had already set in motion the part that would humiliate me the most. Because Ryan was not coming home to fix anything. He was coming home to close up loose ends. And I had no idea yet that one of those loose ends was me. When Ryan said he was coming home for a bit, I told myself I would be different this time. Cooler, more guarded, less available. I told myself I would not run the second he gave me attention. I told myself I would not let one soft tone of voice erase months of disrespect. I told myself that if he wanted access to me again, he would have to speak plainly, explain himself, and act like a grown man for once. That was the speech I gave myself. Reality looked different. Because when somebody has spent months starving you of affection, even crumbs can feel like a feast. He got back on a Thursday. I knew because his text came just after noon. Home. That was it. No smiley face, no excitement, no "want to see you?" Just one word, like he was dropping a fact into my lap to see what I would do with it. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to say, okay. Part of me wanted to ask why he thought he could just drift back into town like a ghost and expect me to be waiting. Instead, I did the most predictable thing possible. I texted, "How long are you here?" His reply came fast this time. "A little while. Wanna hang out later?" My stomach twisted. That was the thing about him. He could turn casual into confusion so fast. Hang out, not talk, not fix things, not explain. Just slide right into that loose, lazy language that let him avoid responsibility while still keeping the door open. I should have said no. Instead, I said, "Maybe." He sent back, "LOL. Okay, let me know." That annoyed me more than it should have. The lol, the fake lightness. Like we were two people figuring out weekend plans, not two people standing in the wreckage of a 3-year relationship he had lit on fire from another state. I spent the next few hours trying to decide what would be more humiliating, seeing him or not seeing him. Kayla told me not to go. Naturally, I went. I told myself I needed closure, needed to look him in the eye, needed to hear whatever pathetic explanation he was going to give so I could finally shut the door for good. That was the official story anyway. The truth was simpler and sadder. I missed him. I missed the version of him I kept hoping would show back up. I met him that evening in the parking lot behind a little Mexican restaurant we used to go to all the time. It was neutral enough not to feel romantic, public enough to feel safe, familiar enough to make me hate myself a little for choosing it. I got there first. Of course I did. I sat in my car watching the entrance and trying to slow my breathing. My hands were cold even though it was warm outside. I kept checking my reflection in the mirror, then getting irritated with myself for caring how I looked to a man who had already disrespected me 100 different ways. Then his truck pulled in, and for one terrible second, my body reacted before my brain did. Because there he was, the same face, same shoulders, same way of getting out of the truck like the world would wait for him if he took his time. He looked more confident than before, more polished, leaner, sharper around the edges, like the distance had done exactly what he wanted it to do. He spotted me and smiled, and I hated how familiar that smile still felt. He climbed into my car instead of greeting me outside. No hug, no kiss, no awkward pause, just opened the passenger door and slid in like he had every right. "Hey," he said. Hey. That was how he greeted me after months of lies. I stared at him. Hey. For a second we just sat there. He looked good. I hated that too. His hair was cut shorter than before. He smelled different, cleaner somehow, like some new body wash he had picked up while he was gone. He looked like someone who had spent months becoming more impressed with himself. He glanced around my car. "You still got all this stuff in here?" I almost laughed. That was his opening line. Not an apology, not a real conversation, a comment about the clutter in my back seat. "Seriously?" I asked. He looked at me. "What? That's what you've got?" He leaned back in the seat like I was already exhausting. "I'm just making conversation." I folded my arms. Maybe try honesty instead. His jaw tightened for half a second. Then he gave that little shrug he used when he wanted to pretend nothing was a big deal. "You look good," he said. It should have meant nothing by then, but it still landed. I hated that too. "You didn't come here to compliment me." He looked out the windshield. I came here to see you. Why? He took a breath. Because things got weird. I turned and stared at him. Things got weird? He looked back at me like he had said something reasonable. Yeah. No, say it correctly. I said, you lied, got caught, acted like I was crazy, and disappeared. That's not things got weird. He rubbed one hand over his mouth, suddenly looking irritated. I knew this was how this was gonna go. I let out a disbelieving laugh. How? What was gonna go? Me not pretending you did nothing? He shook his head. I'm not doing the whole dramatic fight thing. That did it. I sat back and looked at him like I was seeing a stranger. Because maybe I was. There was something almost fascinating about the way he spoke now. Not guilty, not sorry, just inconvenienced. Like my emotions were an annoying side effect of choices he should have been allowed to make in peace. You really think this is me being dramatic? I think you always want everything to be a huge emotional scene. For a second, I couldn't speak. Always. That word again. Like I had spent our entire relationship making chaos out of nowhere, instead of spending months swallowing hurt to keep us steady. I said quietly, You have become a really ugly person. That hit him. Not deeply, but enough for his expression to flicker. I'm not ugly, he said. I'm just not gonna sit here and let you twist everything. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. Twist what? The picture? The lies? The girl? He looked away. And that was when I knew the girl was real in the fullest sense. Not just flirtation, not just overlap. Something more solid than he wanted to admit. I lowered my voice. What is she to you? He stayed silent. I asked again. What is she to you? Finally, he said, I've been hanging out with her. While still talking to me. He didn't answer. While telling me you missed me. Still nothing. While making me look stupid. He rubbed the back of his neck. It didn't happen all at once. I stared at him. That was his defense. Not I'm sorry. Not I handled this wrong. Just, it didn't happen all at once. As if betrayal happening gradually made it more acceptable. I felt something inside me harden. That is one of the most pathetic things you've ever said to me. He frowned. I'm trying to explain. No. You're trying to soften it. He started to say something, then stopped. And then, just like that, the whole energy shifted. Because suddenly, his face changed. Softer, more familiar, more like the version of him I had loved. He leaned slightly closer, looked me right in the eyes, and said in a low voice, Ava, I didn't want to hurt you. Said, that was the first moment all evening that sounded human. And because I was still me, still not fully healed, it reached me. I hate admitting that, but it's true. Pain makes you vulnerable to scraps. One soft sentence from the same mouth that wrecked you can still make your heart twitch if you haven't fully buried the old version of them. My eyes burned. Then why did you? He looked down at his hands. A lot changed out there. That line might have worked on somebody who had not spent months unraveling. It did not work on me. I shook my head. No, your location changed. Your character did. He went quiet. For a second, I actually thought maybe we were getting somewhere. Maybe now, finally, he would be honest. Maybe now he would say, I met someone else. I lied. I was selfish. I'm sorry. Instead, he said, I just think we both need to accept it. Accept it. As if I was behind. As if he had already processed everything while I was over here refusing to catch up. I looked at him and felt the last little bit of hope draining out through a crack in my ribs. Then why did you ask to see me? He hesitated. That hesitation told the truth before his mouth did. Then he said, Because I care about you. I laughed so hard I scared myself. You care about me? Yes. Ryan, men who care about you Do not build a whole second relationship while you're writing them letters. His face hardened again. You don't know everything. I know enough. That was the end of anything honest. After that, the conversation started moving in circles. He would throw out soft, vague language. I would ask direct questions. He would dodge. I would get angry. He would act exhausted. It was like trying to nail smoke to a wall. And yet, somehow, by the end of the night, he still had me emotionally off balance. That was his skill. Not truth, control. He knew exactly how to give just enough softness to keep you from walking away clean. When we finally got out of the car, he leaned against the side of it and said, "You don't have to hate me." I looked at him. "That is not your decision." He smirked a little, like he almost respected that answer. Then he said, "I'll text you." And I should have told him not to. Instead, I got in my car and drove home with tears in my eyes, furious at him and even more furious at myself. Because deep down, I knew exactly what had happened. He had not come to fix anything. He had come to check whether I was still emotionally available. And the answer, humiliatingly, was yes. Over the next couple of weeks, he kept doing exactly what I should have expected. He stayed in touch. Not consistently. Never generously. Just enough. A late-night text here. A random call there. What are you doing on a Tuesday? Miss talking to you on a Sunday. Each time, just enough to make me feel like there was still unfinished business between us. Like maybe he had not fully chosen. Like maybe part of him still belonged to me. That is how people like him keep women trapped. Not with love, with ambiguity. He would disappear for half a day, then pop up acting warm. If I took too long to reply, he would double text. If I replied too quickly, he would vanish. Everything about it felt calculated, without ever being obvious enough to prove. And because the universe apparently wanted to make me even more miserable, that was also the period where I started hearing things from other people. The first rumor came from a girl named Brianna I had gone to high school with. We were not close, but she messaged me one night, asking if Ryan and I were still together. That question alone made my stomach drop, because nobody asks that unless they already think the answer might be no. I wrote back, "Why?" She took a while to answer, which made me even more anxious. Finally, nothing. I just saw him out. I stared at the message, then typed, "Out where?" Her reply came quickly this time. "At Miller's. Last weekend. He was talking to this blonde girl for a long time. They looked real comfortable. I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure if y'all were on and off or what." I read that message 3 times. Then I wrote the dumbest possible thing. "Do you know who she was?" Because even then, some weak little part of me wanted there to be an answer that hurt less. "No," she said. "Just some girl." Just some girl. A phrase that would soon start feeling like a category he collected. A few days later, another one landed. This time, it came from someone Ryan himself knew. A guy from his old circle. Not a close friend, but close enough that he probably felt guilty. He messaged me like he was stepping into traffic. "Not trying to start drama, but just so you know, Ryan was all over some girl at a bonfire last night. Didn't know if y'all were still a thing." I didn't even respond. I just sat there looking at my phone while the room blurred. It was not the cheating anymore. It was the pattern, the greed of it. The fact that even after finding someone in training, even after keeping me half attached back home, he was still out here sampling attention from whoever crossed his path. That was when I understood something crucial. This was not about one girl. This was about who he had become. The girl in training was not some tragic love story that had complicated his feelings. She was just the beginning of his new life as a man who thought he deserved endless female loyalty while giving none in return. And I still wasn't done learning how deep that went. One evening, after letting him sit unread for almost a full day, I finally picked up when he called. His voice came through with that familiar lazy confidence. "So now you ignore me?" I almost laughed. "That's funny coming from you." He clicked his tongue softly. "You're still mad!" Still, like there was an expiration date on betrayal. "I heard you were out kissing girls," I said flatly. A pause. Then, "Who told you that?" Again, not. "That's not true." "Just who told you that?" That told me enough. I leaned back against my bed frame and closed my eyes. "So it's true." He sighed. "You're acting like we're together. I sat upright so fast my pillow fell to the floor. "We're together? I repeated. "You know what I mean." "No, actually I don't. Explain it to me." He was quiet. I could feel him realizing he had said the silent part too loud. So I helped him. "You mean you wanted me emotionally available, loyal, and easy to return to while you ran around doing whatever you wanted?" "That's not what I said." "It's exactly what you meant. You always take stuff to the extreme." "No," I said, my voice shaking now. "I just finally hear you clearly." He went silent for a second, then tried another angle. "I've just been trying to figure my life out." I laughed in disbelief. "On women? That's not fair." I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it, like maybe hearing him this directly full of nonsense required visual confirmation.
"Not fair?"
I said. "You had me waiting for you. You had another girl in training. You came home and stayed in contact with me like there was something left to work out. And now I'm hearing you're out here kissing random women too. But sure, let's talk about fair." He was quiet so long I thought maybe he had finally run out of lies. Then he said, very softly, "I do care about you." I hated how much he used that line. Men like him think care should buy them forgiveness, when care costs them nothing. I said, "You care about access. That's not the same thing." He didn't answer. And then, because God clearly wanted to hand me one clean gift in the middle of this mess, he slipped up. It happened because he was irritated. He wanted to defend himself without thinking too hard. He said, "You don't know what it's like dealing with somebody who's always in my business." I froze. Somebody. Not everybody. Not people. Somebody. I kept my voice very still. "Who?" He went silent. My pulse started pounding. "Who is always in your business, Ryan?" He exhaled sharply. "Nobody." "I'm just saying." "No? Who?" He said nothing, and in that silence, I knew. Not just that she existed, that she was serious enough to be annoying him, serious enough to have expectations, serious enough to already feel entitled to his time. The girl from training had become the new official center of his irritation, which meant I was no longer the main relationship. I was the leftover complication. I laughed then, but there was no humor in it. "Oh my God," I said. "You really did replace me." "Don't be dramatic." There it was again, his favorite word for any female emotion he caused. But it did not land the same now. Because for the first time, the humiliation was bigger than the heartbreak. He had not just cheated. He had demoted me without saying it, kept me nearby for comfort, acted like I was difficult for noticing, and built a new relationship right on top of mine like the old foundation did not still have my name on it. Something in me finally got tired. Not healed, just tired enough to stop arguing. I said quietly, "You know what? I hope she figures you out faster than I did." And then I hung up. He texted twice after that. "You're being childish." Then, "Whatever." That second text made me smile for the first time in days. Because whatever is what men say when the conversation stops being useful to them. A week later, I got the final blow I did not know was coming. I was at my mom's house when Kayla called me, sounding half angry, half stunned. "You need to sit down." My stomach dropped instantly. "Why?" "Because if I say this and you're driving, you might hit a tree." "I'm not driving. What happened?" She took a breath. "I just heard from Jess that Ryan's bringing that girl here." I felt like the floor shifted under me. "What?" "Here," she repeated. "To town. Like not just visiting. Apparently she's moving up." I couldn't speak. My mom was in the kitchen behind me, talking to my aunt about something dumb on TV, and the normal sound of them made the moment feel even more unreal. I walked out onto the back porch, because suddenly I couldn't breathe in the house. "Say that again." Kayla's voice softened. "I'm sorry. Jess said she heard it from his cousin. The girl from training is moving here." I sank into one of the porch chairs like my knees had stopped working. Not just cheating. Not just replacing me. Not just disrespecting me in private. He was bringing her here, to my town. To the streets I drove every day. To the stores we used to go to. To the same little world where people knew me as his girlfriend for years. The humiliation of that was hard to explain unless you have lived something like it. It was not just heartbreak. It felt territorial, violating. Like he was importing the proof of my replacement and setting it down right in front of my life. Kayla kept talking, but my ears were ringing. Then she said something that cut through. "And apparently they're already talking marriage." That made me sit up. "What?" "That part might be gossip," she said quickly, but Jess sounded pretty sure. I laughed then. A weird, breathless laugh that didn't sound like me at all. Marriage. He had barely managed honesty, and now he wanted a courthouse fantasy with the girl he met while lying to me. It would have been funny if it were happening to someone else. Instead, I sat there, staring into my mom's backyard, while a hot, ugly mix of grief and rage climbed up my throat. After I hung up, I checked my phone. There was a text from Ryan. Of course there was. "You good?" That was all it said. No context. No kindness. No humanity. Just "you good?" From the man quietly moving his side relationship into my hometown like I was some background character who should clap politely. I stared at the screen until my vision sharpened in a strange new way. Because for the first time, I did not feel the urge to explain my feelings to him. I did not feel the urge to ask questions. I did not feel the urge to beg for respect. I felt insulted. Deeply. Cleanly. Coldly. Insulted. And right there on my mother's back porch, with the evening light stretching across the yard and my family still laughing inside like my world was not shifting, I understood something that should have hit me months earlier. Ryan was not confused. He was not overwhelmed. He was not torn between two women. He was greedy. He wanted the thrill of the new girl, the safety of the old one, the admiration of strangers, the loyalty of women, and the freedom to act offended whenever any of us noticed. And if that rumor about marriage was true, then he was not just reckless. He was building something stupid on top of a pile of lies. I texted him back 3 words. "I'm perfectly fine." That was a lie. But it was the first one I told him that ever made me feel better. Because what he did not know yet was that the heartbreak stage was dying. And something else was starting to wake up. Something sharper, something quieter, something patient. Because if he really moved her here, if he really married her, if he really thought he could parade that fake little love story through my hometown and never have the truth catch up to him, then he was dumber than I thought. And Ryan, for all his confidence, was a very, very dumb man. The rumor turned out to be true faster than I expected. That was one of the worst parts of the whole thing. There was no long gap where I could slowly adjust. No time to recover with dignity. No mercy period where he at least pretended to care how humiliating this all looked from my side. Everything moved fast. Too fast. Like he knew that if he slowed down for even a second, the truth might catch up to him. About 2 weeks after Kayla called me with the news, I saw her for the first time. Not online. Not in a blurry tagged photo. In person. I was at Walmart of all places, because heartbreak does not stop people from needing shampoo and paper towels. I was in the home section half looking at candles I did not need, mostly because I had started wandering stores when I felt too restless to be home. That had become a habit by then. Restlessness. I couldn't sit with myself for too long without my mind replaying everything. So I drove around, ran errands that did not matter, bought things I could have bought later. Anything to avoid sitting still long enough to feel the full weight of what he had done. I had a basket in one hand and my phone in the other when I looked up and froze. Ryan was 10 feet away, and beside him was her. For 1 second, I honestly thought my brain had made it up. Because seeing somebody in your hometown after hearing rumors is one thing. Seeing the actual proof standing under fluorescent lighting near cheap lamps and discounted rugs is another. It makes everything uglier in a more ordinary way. He had really brought her here. She was shorter than I expected. Brown hair, big smile. One of those women who carried herself like she had already been told she was pretty that day. Not stunning, not unforgettable. Just confident in the kind of way people get when they believe the story they've been sold. And Ryan looked comfortable. That was what made my throat tighten. Comfortable. Not nervous, not guilty, not like a man dragging a mess behind him from state to state. He had one hand on the cart like this was just normal Saturday life. Like moving his affair into my town was just another adult milestone. For half a second, I don't think they saw me. I saw her leaning toward him, showing him something on her phone. He smirked. She laughed and lightly touched his arm like she had done it 100 times. He bent his head closer to hers, relaxed and easy, and I felt such a hot wave of rage that my ears started ringing. Not because I still wanted him, that part was dying. Because of the disrespect. Because I had spent years loving him, supporting him, believing in him, and now he was strolling around my town with his new little wife-to-be like I was supposed to vanish quietly into the wallpaper. Then he looked up and saw me. If I live to be 90, I will never forget that tiny flicker in his face. Not regret, not shame. Recognition first, then calculation. That was Ryan in one expression. He immediately straightened, and the air around him changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. His shoulders tightened, his jaw flexed. He glanced at her, then back at me, already doing math in his head. How much did I know? What would I do? Would I make a scene? Would I embarrass him? Her smile faded when she noticed his attention shift. Then she followed his gaze and looked right at me. I had never met her before, but I knew instantly she knew exactly who I was. There was something in the way her posture changed. Not shocked, not confused, more like alert. She knew. Maybe not every detail. Maybe not the full timeline, but she knew enough. That made me hate her a little too, if I'm honest. Not because she owed me loyalty. She didn't. But because there is a certain kind of woman who knows another woman is still bleeding and chooses to step over the blood anyway as long as she gets the man. I looked at both of them for 1 second too long, then calmly turned my cart and walked away. I could feel Ryan watching me, could feel him waiting to see if I would explode. I didn't. Not there. Not in Walmart. I made it all the way to my car before my hands started shaking. Then I sat behind the wheel and laughed once. The kind of laugh that comes out when the alternative is screaming. Because there it was, the full insult. Not just rumors anymore. Not just screenshots and vague explanations and late-night lies. He had physically imported my replacement into my everyday world, and she was walking around stores with him like they were some fresh little couple starting over. When I got home, there was already a text from him. Of course there was. Didn't expect to see you today. That was all. No apology. No concern for how humiliating that must have been. Just a soft little test message, like he was tapping the glass to see whether the snake was awake. I stared at it and did not answer. 5 minutes later, another one came. I didn't want it to be weird. I laughed so hard I nearly threw my phone. He didn't want it to be weird. A man who cheated, lied, overlapped relationships, moved the other woman into my hometown, and apparently expected to build a whole life here now, had the nerve to say he didn't want it to be weird. I still didn't answer. That evening, Kayla came over with takeout and the expression she always wore when she was trying not to say, "I told you so," while absolutely thinking it. The second I opened the door, she took one look at my face and said, "You saw them." Not a question. I stepped aside so she could come in. At Walmart. She let out a long breath. That is so disrespectful. I know. No, like, beyond cheating, beyond messy. That is calculated. I dropped onto the couch and tucked my legs under me. He texted me after. She put the food down. Of course he did. What did he say? I picked up my phone and read it out loud. She stared at me for a second, then sat down hard on the armchair. He is actually insane. I snorted. Apparently he didn't want it to be weird. Kayla leaned forward. Ava, that man wants to be the victim of his own choices so bad. He wants you quiet, her happy, and himself admired. That is the entire plan. I looked down at my hands. She knew who I was. Kayla was quiet for a beat. You think? I know. There was something heavy in my chest when I said it. Not surprise. Just that ugly, flat disappointment that comes when suspicion turns solid. She looked right at me like I swallowed, like she already had the script. Kayla's mouth tightened. Then she is a fool. I shrugged, but it hurt. Not because I needed the other woman to choose me. I didn't. But there is something especially degrading about realizing the new person knew enough to understand the damage and stayed anyway. It makes you feel less like a person and more like an obstacle that got cleared. Over the next few weeks, things got even more insulting, because once she moved here, Ryan started performing. That is the best word for it. Performing. Online, in public, in that gross little polished way people do when they want their relationship to look sweeter than it is. Before that, he had never been especially romantic in public, not with me. He wasn't the type posting paragraphs or taking staged couple photos or acting like some charming gentleman every 5 seconds. If anything, he had always acted slightly too cool for all that. But now suddenly he was Mr. Soft Life. Tagged photos, smug little captions, couple selfies, pictures that looked just spontaneous enough to pretend they were real, while actually screaming, "Look at me, look how settled I am, look how good I look now." I should not have been checking. I know that. But heartbreak has a way of making liars out of us too. You tell yourself you're just looking once, just making sure, just satisfying curiosity. Meanwhile, you are slowly poisoning your own nervous system with every perfect-looking post. The worst one came on a Thursday night. She posted a picture of the two of them standing outside some restaurant downtown. He had one hand on the door, holding it open for her, and she was turned toward the camera smiling like she had won something. The caption said, "Still can't believe I found a man who treats me this well, opens every door, makes me laugh every day, and makes this place feel like home." I stared at that caption until my vision blurred. Not because I wanted him back, because I knew what kind of lie I was looking at. This man had barely opened the emotional door to basic honesty for anyone. Now here he was online, getting dressed up as some thoughtful prince because he held a restaurant door open and knew how to smile for pictures. I wanted to throw my phone into traffic. Instead, I did what angry women do when they are trying not to go insane. I started collecting screenshots, captions, dates, little details. Not because I had a full plan yet, because my instincts were awake now. Something in me understood that fake men build fake images fast, and fake images crack hardest when truth arrives with receipts. Around this same time, I started hearing a few more things from people who knew him. Not enough to blow everything open yet, just enough to deepen the disgust. One of his old friends, drunk enough to be careless, mentioned in passing that Ryan had been complaining about the house situation. That caught my attention. "What house situation?" I asked, trying to sound casual. The guy shrugged. "That fixer-upper they got. He was saying it was rough because her credit sucked, so they had to settle." I must have gone very still, because he suddenly looked uncomfortable. I mean, I don't know the details. He was just venting about her, the woman he was helping present as his perfect new chapter. I smiled tightly and changed the subject, but inside I felt something sharp slide into place. So that part was true too. Not only had he humiliated me and replaced me publicly, he was also talking behind her back privately. That was Ryan all over. Different face for every audience. Sweet husband online. Frustrated victim in private. Confused little guy with me. A man like that does not tell lies once. He builds his whole life out of them. A few days later, I got confirmation of something else I already suspected. He had kissed at least 2 women during that short period after he came home, and before she officially moved up. Not rumors this time. One of the girls admitted it. I knew her distantly through mutual friends. We ran into each other outside a gas station, and after enough awkward circling, she finally blurted out, "I didn't know y'all were still a thing." I looked at her and felt my stomach drop, even though I already knew. When? She looked embarrassed. "A few weeks back, at Miller's. He was acting single." Of course he was. Because why keep the lying limited to 2 women when you can spread it around and maximize the damage? I asked, "Did he say anything about having somebody?" She shook her head fast. "No. If I knew there was all this going on, I wouldn't have touched him." And for once, I believed the girl. That was another hard truth I had to swallow. Not every woman around him was malicious. Some were just being fed the same edited version of reality. Ryan liked women best when they each held one small piece of him and none of them had the full map. That night I sat on my bed with my screenshots open and my notes app full of dates, half connections, and ugly little pieces of truth. The room was dark except for my lamp. Outside, cars passed every so often. Somewhere in my building, somebody was laughing at a TV show, and I remember feeling almost offended by how normal the world sounded while I was piecing together the anatomy of my own humiliation. But something else was happening too. Something quieter. The crying had slowed. That surprised me. Not because I was healed. I wasn't. But because grief was making room for clarity, and clarity is dangerous when you've spent months being manipulated. For the first time, I stopped thinking of myself as the abandoned one and started thinking of him as the fraud. That shift changed everything. Because abandoned sounds powerless, fraud sounds exposed. And the more I looked at the facts, the clearer it became that his whole new life was built on the same rotten pattern. He lied to me. He lied to her. He lied to random girls. He lied to friends. He lied online. He lied by omission. He lied by tone. He lied by pretending confusion where there was really selfishness. Even the romance he was showing her looked fake once you knew how easily he could switch masks. A week later, the courthouse rumor became fact. I found out the way small towns force information to travel, through somebody's cousin's friend's aunt who had seen the paperwork, and then through social media when she posted a photo that gave the whole game away. It was not some big wedding. No beautiful venue. No family celebration worth respecting. No grand love story. Just a courthouse. A rushed little legal stamp on top of a rushed little lie. She posted a blurry photo of their hands with the marriage license partly visible, and the caption was one of those breathless, dramatic lines people use when they want strangers to clap for choices they made too fast. When you know, you know. I stared at those 5 words for so long they started to feel evil. When you know, you know. What exactly did she know? That he was already in a relationship when they started? That he had been keeping me half-hooked while building this with her? That he had kissed other women after coming home? That he complained about her behind her back? That the life she was celebrating had my fingerprints all over the broken foundation? Or did she only know the flattering version, the one where she was the chosen woman and I was some bitter ex who just needed to move on? I don't know, but I know this. If you marry a man in a rush while his past is still actively smoking, then deep down, part of you knows enough. I did not cry when I found out they got married. That shocked me. I sat there with my phone in my hand and waited for the tears, but they didn't come. What came instead was something colder. Insult, disgust, and a strange, almost calm certainty that their little courthouse fairy tale was held together with tape. Because the truth is, I had spent months seeing who Ryan really was. And men do not become honest because they sign paperwork. They just get more comfortable. That same night, I got drunk enough to do something I had avoided for too long. I went back through everything. Every message. Every photo. Every weird conversation. Every time he used words like dramatic, crazy, too much, relax, you're tripping, I care about you, I didn't want it to be weird, and we both need space. I lined them up in my head and saw the pattern so clearly it almost made me laugh. He had never once taken full responsibility for anything. Not once. Not to me. Which meant one thing. He was almost certainly not taking full responsibility with her either. That was when the thought came. Not fully formed. Just the first spark. I wonder what she knows. The question sat there for days. I ignored it at first. I told myself it was pointless, messy, beneath me. I told myself she chose him. She knew enough. Let her live in it. But then he kept being fake, and that made it hard to stay noble. Because every time I started thinking maybe I should let it go, he or she would post something else. Another polished caption. Another little domestic performance. Another stupid public love note dressed up like they had beaten the odds instead of bulldozed through basic decency. And one evening, right when I was almost settling into the idea of staying silent forever, Instagram did something beautiful. Her account showed up in my suggested follows. I stared at the screen, then at her profile picture, then at the little blue glow around her newest post. My pulse sped up instantly. There she was, public page, no privacy settings, no caution, just her whole little married life laid out for strangers to like and admire. I clicked, and suddenly I was inside the curated museum of my own disrespect. Photos of the house, photos of them at dinner, photos of his arm around her. Posts about new beginnings, posts about making a home together, posts about how hard things had been but how worth it love is when it's real. When it's real. That line made me laugh so hard I had to put my phone down for a second. Because real? I knew real. Real was me sitting in my car outside work staring at the first photo of him with her. Real was him telling me I was crazy. Real was him kissing other women while keeping us both on a string. Real was him complaining that her credit was bad. Real was him playing gentleman online while acting like honesty was too much effort in private. That page wasn't real. It was decoration. And the final shove came when I saw her newest post. It was the same restaurant door picture I had already seen before, but this time the caption was longer, more smug, more glowing, more insulting. She called him the kindest man she had ever known. The kindest man. I read those words once, twice. Then I looked at the message box under her profile. My thumb hovered over it. I could hear every warning in my head. Don't do it. This is messy. This will make you look bitter. This will give them both attention. This will drag you back into drama. Then another voice spoke up. Not emotional. Clear. Why should he get to build a fake reputation using your silence? I looked at the screen again. Message. Just one click away. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt ready. Because Ryan had spent nearly a year lying to women, performing for strangers, and counting on the fact that the people he hurt would stay too embarrassed, too tired, or too classy to speak. He had mistaken my silence for weakness. He had mistaken my pain for passivity. And now, staring at his new wife's glowing Instagram caption with my pulse steady and my jaw locked, I realized something that made me smile. He had no idea how much I knew. And she had no idea what kind of man she was praising in public. Not yet, but she was about to. I stared at the message box for a long time, not because I didn't know what I wanted to say, because I did. I knew exactly what I wanted to say. The problem was deciding how much. There is a kind of power in telling the full truth, but there is also power in saying just enough and letting the rest bloom in somebody else's head like poison. I sat cross-legged on my bed with my phone in one hand and my notes app open in the other, reading through dates, screenshots, names, and pieces of memory like I was preparing for court. In a way, I was. Not legal court. Moral court. The kind where a woman who has been lied to finally stops asking for justice and simply delivers information. Outside, it was raining lightly. I could hear drops tapping against my window and the low hum of cars passing on wet pavement. My lamp cast that warm yellow light that usually made my room feel calm. That night, it made everything feel sharper, clearer. I clicked into our old messages again. Ryan had always been talented at saying nothing with confidence. The more I reread him, the more obvious it all became. The vague language, the strategic softness, the half-truths. The careful way he never fully denied anything unless he needed immediate cover. Men like that survive by making women doubt themselves more than they doubt him. That was his real gift. Not charm, distortion. He had distorted me for months, made me question my instincts, my memory, my reactions, my right to be angry, my right to ask simple questions. And somewhere inside all that, he must have come to believe I would stay quiet forever. That was the mistake, because pain can keep a woman silent for only so long before it turns into clarity. I opened a new message to her, then I closed it. Opened it again, closed it again. I laughed at myself once, low and bitter. This was not fear of her. It was the weight of understanding that once I sent this, the silence would be over. The polished little fantasy they had been staging online would have a crack in it, and even if she chose to ignore everything I said, she would never again be able to say she didn't know. That mattered to me more than I expected. Not because I cared about saving her. I didn't. At least, not in some noble sisterhood way people like to imagine. I was not reaching out because I believed she deserved the truth as some pure moral gift. I was reaching out because Ryan had lied to me, lied to her, and then had the nerve to let her praise him publicly as if he were some rare good man. No, absolutely not. If she wanted to brag about him online, then she could brag with all the facts. I got up, paced my room, sat back down, then finally texted Kayla. I'm about to message her. Her reply came in less than a minute. Do it. I smiled. Then another message came. But be smart, calm, facts only. No emotional essay. Let the truth do the damage. That was exactly right. Ryan was slippery. Emotional mess would help him. Clean facts would corner him. So I inhaled, rolled my shoulders once, and started writing. I did not insult her. I did not call her names. I did not beg her to believe me. I did not write like a jealous ex. I wrote like someone who had nothing left to lose and no reason to lie. My message said, "Hey, I'm reaching out because I think if our positions were reversed, I would want to know. Ryan and I were together for almost 3 years. He was still involved with me when he got with you during training. After he came back home, before you moved here, I know for a fact he kissed at least 2 other women. He also said some disrespectful things about you behind your back, including complaining about your credit and the house you two had to buy. I'm not messaging you to argue. I just think you should know the man you're posting about is not being honest. Do what you want with that." I read it 5 times. It was clean, controlled, specific, no extra drama, no begging, no scream in the wording. Just truth handed over like a blade by the handle. I sent it before I could rethink myself into cowardice. The second it went through, my heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. That surprised me. I thought I would feel immediate relief, powerful, victorious, maybe smug. Instead, I felt a wild, electric mix of adrenaline and nausea, like my body had finally caught up with the fact that I had just thrown a lit match into a very dry room. Then came the waiting, the longest 10 minutes of my life. I tossed my phone on the bed, picked it back up, locked it, unlocked it, opened Instagram, closed Instagram. I started pacing again, then forced myself to sit down. Nothing. No reply. No scene. No typing bubble. No instant block. Nothing. That almost made it worse. Because when you send a truth bomb like that, silence becomes its own kind of torture. Did she see it? Was she reading it 10 times? Was she already screaming at him? Was she laughing and calling me crazy? Was she handing her phone to him right now? I knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened next, Ryan was not about to have a peaceful evening, and that thought alone steadied me. After about 15 minutes, I got a notification. She had seen it. No reply. Just seen. I stared at the little word on my screen and felt a slow smile spread across my face. Because that was enough. Not closure, not justice, but enough. She had read it. Which meant the perfect little image in her head, whatever version of it existed, had just been forced to share space with facts she could not fully erase. I texted Kayla. She saw it. No reply. Kayla answered, "That house is on fire right now." I laughed out loud for the first time in days. And then, like the universe decided to reward me immediately, I noticed something else. Ryan's profile picture disappeared. At first I thought maybe my app had glitched. I refreshed. Still gone. I clicked his name. User not found. For one beautiful second, I just stared. Then I checked again from a burner old account I barely used. Gone there too. I sat up straight. No way. No actual way. He had deactivated his account. The same day. The same evening. Right after she saw my message. I covered my mouth with one hand and started laughing so hard I nearly dropped my phone. It was not pretty laughter. It was the kind that comes out of a body that has been tense for too long and suddenly gets proof that the hit landed exactly where it was meant to. He deactivated. Ryan, Mr. Image, Mr. Smug Little Public Couple Photos, Mr. Soft Captions by Association, Mr. I Don't Want It to Be Weird, gone, offline, vanished. That alone told me everything I needed to know. Truth that means nothing does not make a man hide. Truth that is harmless does not make a man disappear. He deactivated because there had been a reaction. Maybe a fight. Maybe tears. Maybe denial. Maybe panic. Maybe her demanding his phone. Maybe him trying to spin everything and getting caught in his own web. Whatever version it was messy enough to make him pull the plug. And that gave me a level of satisfaction I can barely describe. Not because I thought one message destroyed their marriage in a single night. I'm not naive. People cling to lies all the time, especially when they've already uprooted their lives to build around them. No, the satisfaction came from something more precise. He was no longer operating untouched. He was no longer gliding from woman to woman and image to image without consequence. For one night, at the very least, the comfort had left his body. For one night, he had to answer questions. For one night, the polished version of himself had to compete with facts. And that mattered. I checked her page next. Her newest post, the one about how great he was, how he opened doors, and made her laugh, and made this place feel like home was gone. Deleted. Just gone. I stared at the blank space where it should have been, and felt this hot, satisfied calm spread through my chest. Not because I was shocked, because it confirmed the whole thing. She had not shrugged my message off. She had not laughed and moved on. Something in what I said had lodged itself under her skin hard enough that she could no longer leave that glowing public praise sitting there untouched. I whispered out loud to my empty room. Yeah, that's what I thought. Then I sat back against my headboard and just breathed. Rain still tapping the window, my lamp still on, my room exactly the same. And yet, everything felt different. Not because Ryan was destroyed. Not because I suddenly got my pain refunded, but because for the first time since he started rewriting reality, I had pushed something true back into the story. He had spent nearly a year controlling angles. That night, I broke one. Around midnight, he finally texted me. Not on Instagram, obviously. Regular text. Of course he did. The message only said, "Real mature." I laughed so hard I snorted. That was what he came up with. Not. That's not true. Not. Why would you do this? Not even a better lie. Just. Real mature. Which was perfect, really. Because guilty men never lead with facts. They lead with tone. If they can't deny what you said, they attack how you said it. I stared at his text for a long moment, then typed back exactly one sentence. If it wasn't true, you wouldn't have deactivated. I sent it and put my phone face down on the bed. He did not reply. Not that night. Not the next morning either. And that silence tasted better than any argument ever could. The next day, I woke up lighter. Still hurt, obviously. Still angry. Still not magically healed. But lighter, like I had been carrying a brick in my chest for months, and finally set part of it down. I made coffee and sat by the window with my phone nearby, half expecting another message from him or, somehow, from her. Nothing came. By noon, I had almost accepted that the silence itself was the ending. Then she replied. My heart kicked once hard against my ribs when I saw her name. The message was short, very short. It said, "Thanks for telling me." That was it. No apology. No follow-up questions. No defense of him. No attack on me. Just 5 words. But those 5 words were enough to tell me everything. She believed at least some of it. Maybe not all. Maybe not yet. Maybe she was still in the stage where women bargain with evidence because accepting it all at once would collapse too much too quickly. But she believed enough to thank me. Enough to know I had not messaged her for sport. Enough to understand that something rotten lived inside the man she had married at the courthouse and posted online like a prize. I did not reply right away. I sat with it for a while. Then I finally wrote back. "You're welcome. I'm not reaching out again after this. Just thought you should know." She saw it. No response. And honestly, that was perfect. I did not want a long conversation with her. I did not want updates from inside their marriage. I did not want to become some side character in the slow collapse of a relationship they had built on disrespect. That was their mess now. I had done my part. Later that afternoon, Kayla came over again, this time carrying iced coffees like we were celebrating a birthday, instead of the emotional equivalent of a controlled demolition. She handed me one and sat on the couch with a grin so wide it made me laugh. "So," she said, "how's the couch at their fixer-upper looking tonight?" I nearly choked on my drink. That is so evil. It is also a fair question. I smiled into my cup. He texted me, said I was mature. She barked out a laugh. "Oh, he's sick." I told him if it wasn't true, he wouldn't have deactivated. Kayla slapped the couch cushion. "Yes!" Then I told her about the wife replying. That made her go quiet for a second. "Wow," she said. "Then yeah, you definitely blew that house wide open." I leaned back and exhaled slowly. I just needed him to not get away clean. Kayla nodded. And he didn't. We sat there in silence for a minute, and I realized something small but important. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't checking my phone because I wanted him to choose me. I was checking it like someone waiting to see fallout from a decision I had made for myself. That difference mattered more than anything. Over the next few days, Ryan stayed quiet. His socials stayed down. Her page stayed up, but noticeably softer. Fewer glowing captions. No smug praise, no romantic theater. Just random house stuff, vague little posts, and the kind of forced normal people do when they are trying to survive a private argument in public skin. I noticed. Of course I noticed. And every time I did, I felt that same small, vicious satisfaction. Because she could keep the husband. She could keep the fixer-upper. She could keep the courthouse license. She could keep the new start captions and the little public performances. But she could never go back to not knowing. That was the gift I gave her. And the consequence I gave him. Would they stay together? Maybe. Would he lie again? Absolutely. Would she ignore it, excuse it, or fold it into some version of marriage she could tolerate? Maybe. That part stopped being my business the second I sent the message. What mattered was this. He cheated. He lied. He overlapped women. He played fake husband online. He talked behind her back. He thought I would stay silent. And I didn't. That was the revenge. Not screaming. Not begging. Not dragging him publicly for strangers. Not trying to win him back so I could reject him later. Just one clean message. One truth delivered without hysteria. One crack in the image he had worked so hard to polish. And honestly, it felt incredible. Petty? Maybe. But I had spent months swallowing humiliation in private while he built comfort from my silence. If speaking facts into the room at the exact moment his new wife was praising him publicly counts as petty, then fine. Call me petty. I can live with that. What I could not live with was letting that man keep using my pain as free labor for his reputation. The funniest part, looking back, is that he probably still thinks I acted out because I was bitter. That would be very him. Men like Ryan always flatten women's motives because the truth is too threatening. If a woman is crazy, dramatic, petty, or bitter, then he never has to admit she might simply be accurate. But I know what I did. I did not lie. I did not exaggerate. I did not invent. I did not destroy anything real. I interrupted a performance. That is all. And if one honest message was enough to make him deactivate his accounts, enough to make her delete the post, enough to put that tight little courthouse marriage under pressure before the paint on the fixer-upper was even dry, then maybe the relationship was never strong. Maybe it was just loud. There is a difference. These days, when I think about him, I don't feel that old aching pull anymore. I don't wonder if he misses me. I don't wonder whether he regrets it. I don't wonder if he knows what he lost. Because the truth is simpler than all that. He lost me when he started lying. He just didn't realize it until I stopped protecting him. And that is what I wish more women understood. Sometimes revenge is not a grand speech, not a public takedown, not some dramatic movie ending where everybody claps and the villain breaks down. Sometimes revenge is much quieter. Sometimes it is one message, one truth, one moment where the person who counted on your silence suddenly has to live without it. And if he slept on the couch that night, good. He earned every lump in it.